Mr. Aderholt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, good to have you here today, Mr. Director. I appreciate the FBI's efforts in addressing illicit activity in the U.S. and the increased emphasis on the adversary's intelligence threat against the United States, namely China. That said, the Department of Justice and the FBI continue to fall short in mitigating our adversary's intelligence threat. In 2019, for example, the FBI estimated that the United States incurs annual losses ranging from $225 to $600 billion annually in illicit activities by China. To put that in perspective, according to the President's budget, all across all agencies, the U.S. invested $142 billion in research and development. So if you look at those numbers, in 2019, China stole at least twice the amount of money we spent on federal research and development. So in looking at your FY24 budget request increase, the counterintelligence budget is increased by $4.5 million. But at the same time, the Bureau requested $14.1 million for zero-emission vehicles. And while I applaud your incredible efforts in addressing the Chinese threat, I guess really what many of us are having a hard time is reconciling these priorities when China steals our entire research and development budget annually. So understanding this is an unclassified environment that we're in this afternoon, can you share your priorities to address these Chinese espionage threats?
So I guess I want to start off by being crystal clear that, as I've said consistently for years now, that in my view there is no country that presents a more significant threat to our innovation, our ideas, our economic security, our national security than the Chinese government. And that's why we've grown the number of investigations into threats from China about 1,300%. And it wasn't that long ago when I checked and we were opening a new investigation related to the Chinese government about every 12 hours. So our folks are working hard on the threat, and that is, for me, at the top of the list I'm talking about with my people every single day. The budget request, there's a little bit of apple to orange there. We have hundreds of millions of dollars in counterintelligence initiatives, and of course the lion's share of those are focused on China. And as far as the increase, the enhancement, the 4.5 million number that you referenced comes on the heels of last year, which we're very grateful to this subcommittee for, an increase of 34 million and 88 positions. So it's part of a multi-year growth by us. The zero emissions vehicle thing is simply the FBI following an executive order that's been applied to every federal agency. So we had to have that in our budget, but you can be confident that any resources that the Congress sees willing to send our way to fight the Chinese government threat, we will put to good use. Our folks are opening, when I say they're opening an investigation, or at least they were last time I checked, about every 12 hours, it sure as heck ain't because they don't have something else to do with their time. Sure. As we've discussed here with all the other threats we're facing. So we are working very hard with it, but the reality is, if there's one thing the Chinese government can bring to the table, it's scale. And then there's a second thing they can bring to the table, it's centralized control. So you put scale and centralized control together, and it's a significant challenge for everybody in the intelligence community. For us, the key to fighting back is partnerships. It's partnerships with the other agencies in the intelligence community, with our foreign partners, our allies, with the business community, because an awful lot of what the Chinese are trying to steal is in the hands of the business community. With academia, they're trying to steal our research, so working with universities. And so the way for us to meet them on the playing field, if you will, is through partnerships. And that's been a big part of our focus, because we're not single-handedly going to be able to investigate our way out of this particular threat. As I mentioned in my opening statement, on the cyber side, the Chinese government, even if all of our cyber personnel did nothing but China, and of course there's a lot else in the cyber world besides just China, the Chinese government hackers would outnumber us 50-1. So it's a significant asymmetric, I think to use the word that was used before, issue. But we are growing, and I wouldn't read too much into the difference between the 4.5 versus the 14.1. The 14.1 is simply us implementing an executive order that we, like every agency, are required to.
Well, you know, certainly I know your commitment, but I do want to stress the importance of that, of really doing everything we can to protect our investments, and I yield back.